Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. He's back. I have Shelley Wynter, conservative, black conservative, radio personality, 95.5 WSB, word on the street host. Shelley, welcome.
How are you, my brother? And before we get into our back and forth, I just want to say how proud I am of you, and that's heartfelt. I love you, brother. God bless you. Congratulations, and know that your successes inspire all of us. So God bless you.
Bless you, brother, and thank you for that sentiment. I love you back, my dear friend. I hope you feel the same after this debate.
I hope you feel the same.
You said some common sense things on the record, and some things I completely disagree with. I don't know what you think about the Texas Senate Bill 3, 18-4, that would stop the mandate of teaching the KKK as morally wrong. And also providing more restrictions to civil rights education. That includes the movement in the 60s and other movements as well. What are your thoughts about this bill and bills similar?
I'm a conservative. See, I'm a true conservative. Understand, I'm not necessarily a Republican, I'm a conservative. Okay. And I don't think the government should play any role in legislating what can and cannot be taught from that aspect. In other words, I don't believe the government should step in and force a school system to teach CRT or not teach CRT. I think that should be left up to the teachers and the individual teachers in the classroom. If you're a teacher that teaches social studies, you lay out your curriculum based on whatever history and social studies you want to teach. So I don't think the Texas legislature should be in a position, I don't think conservatives should be allowing or should be comfortable with any government body, particularly a legislature, which is so far removed from the educational system because none of them are really teachers. They're lawyers and many of them are just business owners. So I think that I don't agree with it from that standpoint. As far as the actual subjects being taken away, I mean, of course we know that's probably absurd, but it's absurd because it's politicians entering into the arena of education and what can and cannot be taught. Are you going to teach about the Black Panthers? Are you going to teach about Huey Newton? Are you going to teach about Nat Turner? I'd like to see you teach about those things if you're going to teach about all the other. I mean, I feel like government should not enter into the educational realm to tell teachers what they can and cannot teach by law. That's problematic for me as a conservative.
Okay, so you make some interesting points here, and I think we definitely have some common ground. Let me first say for the record, because every time I hear CRT, I have to say for the record, critical race theory is an advanced theoretical framework, and it is not taught in K through 12 education.
Actually, that's not true. It has entered into educational systems. It has. I don't want to take it down.
Go ahead. No. Present your case,
I'm not even. It's a red. No. It's no case to be made. It is entering into school systems. Is it being taught as? No, hold on. Is it being taught the same way in which? Is it being taught the same way in which Dr. Derek Bell? In the modern frame of it, brought it into fruition in the 70s as a legal theory and a sociological theory? No, it's absolutely not being
critical
taught.
Race theory. If it's not taught, if it's not being taught, listen to me, Shelley.
We know. I don't want to argue
because that's fine, brother. But I'm going to respond. Come on, Shelley.
What you're going to say,
brother.
No,
brother. You don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm still going to say it.
I've heard you say it to several others.
Okay, we're gonna listen to it again then.
I watch your show, so I know what you're gonna say. My point is, no one's teaching theory.
No one's gonna stop me from saying it.
No, I'm just saying, no, I'm not sitting here. I just don't want you to think I'm sitting here saying that anyone's teaching theory, whether it's critical race, mathematical, physics theory, any theory to third graders. That's what I want you to understand that I did not say.
Here's what I will say to that, because you all continue to conflate the reality.
I just told you I'm not.
Just because you can identify some race relationship in the context of the curriculum does not make it critical race theory. That's like saying algebra is calculus. No, it is not. You're either learning algebra.
It's a horrible analogy.
Or you're learning calculus.
It's still math. It's still math. It's still math.
Listen to me, brother.
Algebra,
race, sir.
It's still math.
Okay, you said that 3 times.
I know.
Critical race theory is different than teaching race relations or the civil rights movement or the KKK. Now,
I said that.
Let's go directly.
I totally agree with that.
Thank you.
I established that when I said we're not teaching theory to 3rd graders.
Right.
I established that.
Which makes it not critical race theory that you're teaching. Now,
it makes it algebra and calculus being math. Go ahead, brother.
No, sir.
Go ahead,
let's go to Senate Bill 3. I know you tried, brother. I give you an E for effort.
No, I did it.
Let's go.
I did it.
Let's go to Senate Bill 3. You're laughing at your damn self. Let's go to Senate Bill 3.
I'm laughing at you.
Okay. All right. This policy, 18-4. The only reason why it's not going to the House is because Democrats left the state to stop the quorum for the voter restriction bill. All right. So that was a fundamental disagreement based on a policy issue. They left the state to stop the quorum. While they were gone, the Senate passed this Senate Bill 3. I just want to make sure I'm very clear about what Senate Bill 3 does. There are 2 parts to it. I'm going to talk about the most egregious part, in my opinion. The most egregious part is that, one, it stops the mandating of the teaching of the KKK. It stopped. There was a mandated curriculum, or currently still is, unless they change the law, that you got to teach the KKK, and obviously you have to teach it in the context of the immoral activity of the Klan. The bill says, one, you're no longer mandated to teach it. And then it says, however, if you choose to, if you decide to teach this controversial subject, which is not controversial, but if you teach it, you cannot give deference of a particular perspective. Meaning you cannot call what the KKK did and who they are and their activities morally reprehensible.
So here's what I would say.
Okay.
If I was a Democrat in Texas, I would say, okay, I'm all for that. Let's do the same thing. No, listen, hear me out.
Okay.
I would say to them, see, the problem is most Democrats don't know how to fight Republicans. I would say, yes, let's do that. I'm all for that. Let's do the same thing for the Nazis. Let's do the same thing for communism. And let's do the same thing for every other. Well, don't shake your head. I'm making the analogy.
I just disagree.
Well, I'm making the analogy that challenge the Republicans to say the Nazis should be treated the same way as the KKK. That's what I'm making the analogy. I'm saying you're making an argument against people that clearly are doing something it's so silly from an educational standpoint. It's not about racism. It's about what's good about education. How can you not teach something that actually happened in history and a group of people that actually changed the path of history? So if you're going to, my point would be, if I'm a Democrat, I would go back to the Republicans and say, absolutely, what a great idea. Let's include the Nazis in that. Let's not teach about World War II. Let's teach about World War II without the Nazis.
Yeah, and let me tell you, and I understand your point of view. So I'm not saying I don't understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to accomplish. My only issue is these folks aren't playing games at all. Like, they are literally trying to take the moral argument out of the argument about racism in America. That's what they're trying to do. Now, let me finish, brother. I've been an educator for a number of years. You know this, I was a high school educator and became a professor. One of the great benefits of education is the moral development of the student. And if you're not teaching, especially social sciences and history, with a moral or a values core, then that teaching will always remain problematic, because now you're not developing the individual, or they don't have the tools to develop themselves in a moral or ethical way based on these teachings and based on the context provided. But you and I agree on the bigger point. The bigger point is, and I'm glad you said it the way you said it, they really shouldn't be involved in this. So let me go back to something that happened in your party, brother, because you are, and I got to say this for everyone watching, you are truly a purist conservative. Now, we will always fundamentally disagree on most policy, but there was a time in the conservative movement when you all preached a doctrine of smaller government. You all preach the doctrine of less government intrusion. And then something happened to where you all decided we're going to cherry pick big government and small government anytime we choose. So now you literally have a big government takeover of school jurisdictions, of school boards, of what a superintendent can and cannot do. You all have such a government takeover happening that literally school teachers who were typically left off limits. I mean, hell, everybody who's running for political office on both sides of the political equator would say, we want to make sure our school teachers are taken care of, right? It was one of the very few, even though there was political nuance in that, it was one of the very few topics that we could all generally agree on. Now, you all are being so dogmatic in your governmental intrusion and taking over smaller governments that you're willing to do it by way of statute, by way of law, not by way of guidance. And I think Kemp, Republican governor in Georgia, he didn't do it by law, he did it by guidance. He said, hey, it's a good idea not to do these things, but they didn't go and create a law for it. He's a Republican, a very conservative guy. How did your party get to this space, and how do you change it?
I think the party got to the space because the world changed around them. I don't agree with the space they've gotten to, but I understand how they got to that space. When you talk about teachers being those people that were largely left alone, you're right. They were largely left alone, but they didn't largely stay out of politics. So when you have a teachers union that gives 99% of their dollar donations on a national, federal, and state level, and even local level to Democrats, Republicans can't fight that because the money's going. So not to say that that's right or wrong or anything, but to say that education has largely stayed out of politics because it's always about the kids. Well, when education started getting political, there was always going to be a natural pushback to that, and that's what you're seeing. Do I agree with the manner in which that pushback is happening from my side of the fence? Absolutely not. But however, I do understand that pushback coming, because when you see people, and you talked about teaching the morality of the student, well, it depends on whose morals you're talking about, because morals aren't necessarily, and I understand the key word being necessarily, universal. So yes, you're right in what you're talking about teaching morals, but I think also it boils down to whose morals are being taught. But that being aside, I've got to say education has become tremendously political, and I think that also is a problem, because to your point, you've been a long-time educator. It should be always only about the children, not about who wins or loses an election, but it should always be about children.
Let me help you out with your analogy. Just because something becomes politicized does not mean it is inherently political. So what you're talking about is a policy agenda of these various unions. Now, you're incorrect on your numbers, not 99%. They still do give to Republicans roughly 30%.
You understand my point,
right?
Overwhelmingly Democrat.
The majority typically will go to a Democratic public official or one seeking office as a Democrat. Now, the reason why they're able to do this is because they have a policy first agenda. Do they have a special interest? Of course they do. A political PAC or a union is a special interest operation. They are supposed to have a special interest. They are designed and designated to have a special interest.
I never said that. Hold on. I never said that they should.
Let me finish.
I'm just saying. Understand? We get into this a lot when we talk. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm establishing.
I'm saying it's right.
Well, that's fine. I'm telling you, you asked me a question first, and I was establishing my answer to
But you finished your answer, brother. It was my turn, brother.
But you were taking my answer and twisting it around.
Brother, you could have responded. No, I wasn't. I was just telling you what I believed.
Oh, okay. That's how our conversations go now. You take what I say and twist it around and say
brother,
that's what I believe.
I'm responding to what you said.
But I didn't say that.
Twisting the words.
You did. You're telling me why these people have PACs, and I'm saying education based on your own definition.
I'm not twisting your words, brother. I'm just giving you some factual context. And the factual context is
that Democrats, that the educational apparatus in this country has not become a Democrat partner and give most of their money to the Democrat side. So the response would be from the Republicans to take over education.
Shelley, here's how it works. Brother, when I allow you to talk, you allow me to talk, all right, brother? Yeah. So here's the thing. The policy agenda has remained similar, but not the same as it relates to educators. Typically, in most of your political action committees or your unions, you have a voting apparatus. You have conferences, you have a voting apparatus. You have a way in which the sentiment of the educators can be understood by the leadership of these particular groups, right? I'm a member of the association, American Association of University Professors. We are able to say, here's what we think is happening in education. Here's what we like. Here's what we don't like, right? And we're able to push the agenda that way. Now, at the end of that, we still have people that agree and disagree, right? But we represent a majority in the leadership. Now, just because Democrats are more willing to walk the political agenda of this policy group does not mean that they are now simply picking sides. How did it really work? Because I promise you, brother, if Republicans would have listened to the education unions and said, we're down with that. We're gonna go ahead and do A, B, and C. We can't give you the rest, but we'll give you this. If they would have been down with it, then these unions would be giving them more money. These unions would be more willing to have these conversations. It is because Republicans decided to take a position that was antithetical to the progress of education. And man, you can't tell me that these school teachers, you can't tell me these school teachers who are the members of these groups are not doing this for the children. You can't tell me that. The people who are not doing it for the children are the bureaucrats and politicians making the law.
I said that, but come on, Rashad. Anybody watching this will say I said that. I'm simply telling you.
Yeah, but you can't say.
Hold on. You said, now, did you just go through a whole screen about letting each other talk? All right, it's my turn now.
Go ahead, brother.
So my point is that you asked me why the Republicans got to this point, and I answered that by saying I don't agree with the point they got to, but I understand how they got there because education has become politicized. And so my point to you is, if it is about the children, then for instance, unions wouldn't be against school choice. If it was about the children, unions would say, hey, let the parents decide where to send their kids, if it were about the children. So when education becomes politicized to the point where you're pushing policies that only benefit your union, which is completely natural, that's why you have a union, then you see parents and legislatures fighting back. But let me ask you this, on the reverse, since you talked about the union and the teachers and the professors and all of that stuff, how do we know that the Ku Klux Klan bill in Texas wasn't asked for by Republican voters and the legislators are not responding to their voters the same way in which a PAC is responding to the members of the teachers union? And I'm just throwing that out there as a hypothetical.
Sure, because the vast majority of Texans are actually against the policy.
Then they won't pass it. That's what happens.
See, wait a minute, that's not, no, brother. Texas has passed policies that were adversarial to the public sentiment of Texans. Let me give you one example.
Give me an example.
When they passed constitutional carry. Constitutional carry was only approved by roughly, I think, 47% of the population. It was under 50 is my point.
Right.
But they still passed it. They still passed. You don't need to get a permit. Let me finish. You don't need to get a permit. You don't need to get a license to carry a gun. It was also opposed by every major law enforcement outfit in Texas. It was opposed by them as well because law enforcement said, we don't need this headache in how we do law enforcement, but they still passed it. So literally, not only did they not have public sentiment, their typical allies were adversarial to the bill and they still passed the damn bill, brother. So you can't say it's gonna be automatic just based on public sentiment.
No, okay, fair enough in that example. And I'm sure those people that voted for that will pay that price. That's how politics work. They will pay that price for passing that bill. So you eventually pay a price for passing things that are against not only your most loyal constituent.
I got you, that's a political price.
Public sentiment.
But before that political price is paid, brother, there's a people price that's paid. And that's the argument that I make.
The reason why that law is even brought up in the first place is that people prices been being paid for a long time before. So now they're going overboard to try and let people protect themselves from the people who have been taking other people's prices. So, we know that people price has been paid before that law came along.
Brother, I'm flat out of time, man. Always a pleasure to have you.
Love you, brother. Congratulations again.
Thank you, brother. I love you back, man. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.